Many companies are discovering that their app usage is growing like weeds as business leaders ignore IT recommendations or look to download quick and easy point solutions. Can artificial intelligence be the key for managing this software sprawl? We're going to talk about this issue next up on Today in Tech. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Joining me on the show today is Prasad Ramakrishnan. He is the CIO of Freshworks. Welcome to the show, Prasad.
Hi, Keith. Good afternoon. How are you doing?
Good. How did I do on the pronunciation of your name, on the last name? Did I get it right, or did I just butcher it?
You got it almost right.
Ramakrishnan.
I know it's got a few syllables in it, so
okay.
It's always right.
Sometimes
but you got it almost.
I'm sure you're used to that, though, with people pronouncing your name. All right, so Freshworks recently published a report called The State of Workplace Technology that discovered a lot of interesting attitudes about software being installed at companies, as well as their hopes for generative AI. For example, the report noted a 71% increase in the number of software apps at companies in recent years. So, framing this, how bad has software sprawl become at companies, and why has it gotten this bad?
I love the term you're using, Keith. Software sprawl is so real today.
Yeah.
Right? Think about it. It's become so easy to buy software now, right? Because if there used to be a time when IT departments used to sit in an ivory tower, and you would need to go to the IT department and say, I would love to buy this piece of software. And then it goes through an extremely lengthy process, and then IT departments would buy the software. But if you look at it today, there is absolutely no friction as it relates to how you buy software, right? And I use the term credit cards have become the bane of IT existence, right? Where if you need a piece of software, if anybody needs a piece of software, all you need to do is go to the website. Most people don't even read the terms and conditions. They just click through that, swipe their credit card, and voila, we have one more piece of software, right? So it is a real problem in the industry today, right? Where you have way too many pieces of software that's there in any enterprise, right? And the way I look at it, right, it's always within every company. It's always a balance between autonomy and alignment, right? From an IT perspective, we want to make sure that we have what we call as a sanctioned applications, which are centrally procured, centrally managed. You have all the bells and whistles in terms of the security posture being evaluated. Does this integrate with everything else? Versus you then have this notion of shadow IT, where there are users on the business side who feel empowered to go and buy the software that they need. Right?
Yeah.
So. From IT's vantage point, one of the things is to make sure that we are not there as an obstruction. We shouldn't be seen as an obstructionist in terms of if somebody needs a piece of software, like if you need a nice microphone for the podcast you're doing, Keith, right?
Right.
You need to be able to buy it.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't want to be there in the way and kind of put too much of governance into that. So give a little bit of leeway to the users to do what they need with some checks and balances to make sure that that you do not do anything to jeopardize your data or your customers' data,
right,
or your employee data.
Is this indicative of the push and pull between an IT department and business leaders, where business leaders feel like they should be able to control the types of apps that are being installed, or or do you have strong IT that really enforces these security and integration issues? It seems like those are the two big ones, right? You want to make sure that the app is secure, but also that it doesn't screw up your other apps.
Totally. So I think it is actually a nice push and pull between the IT and the business units, right? So the one philosophy which I think will actually bring a little bit of more sanity into this type of picture is what I call the alignment with the no surprise alignment between the business and IT. Mm-hmm. IT should never be surprised with the need that is coming from the business. It's not like IT and business are operating in two different realms, right? If you take some of the latest movies that are coming about, they talk about the various, you live in this realm and that realm. IT and business are actually one and the same, right? IT needs to know enough about the business, and the business needs to realize that IT is there to support. Technology is there to enable the business. right? So as long as we get that no surprise realm going, right, where both the business and IT know what needs to be done, you're going to avoid these kind of proliferation of tools, right?
Yeah.
And in many companies, it's a journey, right? Because we are coming from a mode where IT was seen more as a technology leader, but in reality, IT is now a business leader. You need to understand how sales happens, how marketing happens, how finance close happens, right? Or how procurement process happens, so that you now are providing them the tools to make that particular department more effective in the way they serve the end customers, right? So the happy push pull. I like the way you said the push pull. You need to have that healthy push pull where the business is pushing the needle, saying, "Hey, I want this, I want this, I want this," and IT partners with them in the no surprise mode to make sure that we are coming with the appropriate tech stack.
All right, I'm going to probably jump around on this because there's a bunch of other things from the report that I found interesting, and we're going to get back to the idea of this dynamic between IT and the business. But there was another statistic from the report that really jumped out at me. It was 44% of those surveyed said their technology stack is packed with unnecessary features. 42% even said they didn't know how the software got there in the first place. So why do software companies, and I don't know if you know this, but why do they end up putting so much stuff in their stuff? Or this is probably the best way to say it. Like, why do they feel like they have to have 8 billion features in a software app when maybe, users only need 4 or 5 of those things?
Yeah, see, so I think I'm going to borrow one of the statements or one of the phrases you said. You said software sprawl.
Yeah.
I think here you have
so much stuff in their stuff.
Features. Yeah. Yes, feature sprawl.
Feature sprawl. Right. That's another. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and it's become an epidemic, and I'll tell you why. Right? Let's look at how software purchase happens in most companies. In many cases, people issue an RFP, right? Where in the RFP, most people have an established template that they start with and say, "Hey, I'm going to issue this RFP to all the possible vendors out there."
Right.
Now, the vendor who sees the RFP wants to make sure that they're checking off all the boxes in the RFP. Right now, that's one of the reasons why you end up having a proliferation of features that really may not be required. The problem is the person issuing the RFP is almost a solution looking for a problem. They're basically feeding into they're almost feeding into the vendor's lap here in terms of saying, I'm babysitting and providing you all the things that you need to go and check off, right? Because what ends up happening is all these RFP templates are actually through the work that multiple companies have done and through the analysts, people have started now coming up with this laundry list of or kind of the templates of all of these RFPs, right? Which is what leads to kind of a chicken and egg problem here, right? So on one side, you have vendors working with the analysts to come up with the list of features, which then feeds back into the customers to now use the same template to then issue the RFP, so that now the vendors are going and checking off. Rather than looking at it that way.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Do you find this is a symptom of well, not a symptom, but this is more related to larger companies that do this, or is it smaller companies that are trying to get business through these RFPs, that they would look at all of these feature checkboxes and go, "Oh, we'll win the deal if we can get feature A, B, and C into our software," or is it more of a feature creep type thing with larger, bigger platforms?
So I would say there is actually also a happy middle. This is more for doesn't apply as much to the extremely small companies, but to the middle of the road and the larger companies.
Yeah,
that's where they have the so-called software governance process and software selection process. There is a purchasing team that gets involved, right, where from a procurement. So they may have a strategic sourcing team to help with the procurement process, and so that's where you get the on one side, procurement team gets involved, saying, "Hey, I'll go out to the industry and then bring all the possible vendors who can possibly serve this RFP." And on the business side, you have people then coming and asking for free features. I think the magical solution here, Keith, is to look at it in one simple phrase, right? Don't be a solution looking for a problem. Mm-hmm. The minute you start gravitating towards the solution, and saying, okay, I actually have a problem, right? Think about like in the early 2000s when Apple came up with an iPhone, right? Apple is seen as a category creator, right? Where nobody came and said, I want all my MP3 files on a mobile phone, right? Or on a small device. They didn't come and say, I want a camera on this. All these were individual applications that already existed. Right?
Yeah.
You used to have a nice little camera. You would buy a Kodak or a Konica and whatever, and have a nice camera. You would have a separate Walkman for all of your music, right? And you would have a separate brick phone in those days. I don't know whether you remember, but then so Apple created a category where they said, you know what, I can bring all of these things together. That is innovation in the other end of the game, right? Where you actually are creating a category to solve a need. And now then there has been tremendous innovation that's happened in the iPhone and in the phone space, smartphone space, and now we have started making that a part of our normal day-to-day life. But take the business software. If you start saying this is the magical solution that is going to solve my problem without really having a good understanding of what problem you are internally trying to solve, you'll fall into this trap of feature sprawl, right? Because you'll end up choosing your tool thinking that tool is going to magically solve your problem, when you should be approaching it as, what is the real problem I'm trying to solve? What is the business process that I want to emulate here? And then looking at what available tools are there and what features those tools are providing to solve my problem.
How can companies do that? How can companies do that without necessarily getting an RFP involved? Are there other ways to find these solutions? No. I'm not saying the RFP process is a bad process. Okay.
You do need to issue an RFP.
Yeah.
But I'm saying rather than feeding off the RFP where you have a laundry list of features that you think you need, start with
the problem
you really need. Yeah. So instead of working backwards, work forward, where you start with you as the constituent, having a problem that you're trying to solve, and the tools is a means to an end, rather than the tool becoming your project. The tool is just a means to enabling a business process.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to jump back again to another topic. One of the ways that IT groups can start getting a sense of reducing the software sprawl at their company is through a tech review. Can you talk about the tech review process and how you've done them in the past and what works and what doesn't? Because I feel like a lot of companies probably haven't done a tech review in a while, or if they have, maybe they're not getting the enough information out of these.
Yeah. See, I think if you look at the way you need to look at your tech stack. See, at the end of the day, IT is there to provide the technology stack to enable the business, right? And I call it tech review, and we use different terms. We call app rationalization, technology review, tools consolidation review. It's an art and a science, if you really look at it, right? See, at the end of the day, one is I would call do a discovery of what you have within the enterprise. And there are different ways you can do that. You can go into your purchasing system to go look at all the software that has been purchased. There are tools that go into your network to find out what are all the tools that users are accessing.
Yeah.
Then there are tools that IT has purchased and sanctioned, right? So one is building up the complete inventory of all the tools that are there, right? Then you go through a rigorous exercise to make sure, do I have duplicate tools, right? Where you start categorizing each tool in terms of, hey, what have I bought? How many licenses have I bought? How many licenses have I used? How much am I paying for all of this? And then start putting some tags saying, okay, this is actually a calendaring application. This is actually a video conferencing application. This is actually an application that enables me to schedule something with a third party. Right, so start cataloging and tagging each of these applications, and then do a brutal brutal prioritization across all of these to say, do I have 5 tools that do calendaring? Do I have 3 tools that are doing software discovery? Right, and then make this part of your muscle memory. Do this where you go through the list, consolidate, and identify the ones which are going to be retired. Retire them. And then rinse and repeat again.
How often should a company do a tech review? Like, you wouldn't do this every month, would you?
You don't do it every month, but I think the best way to do it is to have a cadence of doing it at least once a quarter.
Once a quarter, okay. I was going to say once a year. My guess was going to be once a year, but once a quarter?
No, once a year, you definitely want to do it at least once a year, right? Because your budgets get adjusted every year. But here at Freshworks, what we do is we look at it once every quarter, where I have my team come back to me and say, hey, here is all the things that we knew about last time. Here are the 3-4 tools that have now come into the enterprise through other projects, through other project initiatives.
Right.
And then we look at saying, hey, yeah, we bought this, but why did we not retire this application? And one of the standing things which I give my team here is, if there's a new tool coming in, what are the 2 tools that I'm going to retire, right? And this is something where it takes a little bit of time for it to become part of the muscle memory, right? So over the last 3-4 years, we have started doing it where every new tool that comes in, you have to retire at least 1 or 2 tools.
You know what that sounds?
One aspect of,
yeah. You know what that sounds like is with my kids whenever they want new clothes. I tell them that you can buy 2 new shirts, but you have to retire 4 shirts. You have to donate 4 of your old ones.
Exactly.
So it's the same concept.
To what we do at home. Exactly, and that's a great analogy here, right? And remember, it's not going to be, IT is not going to be popular doing this, right? Think about it, Keith. If you like the microphone that you're using here for the podcast, right?
Yeah.
And I can say you cannot have that, Keith, because that is non-standard, and we have a different. We have the microphone that's there in your laptop. It should be able to do your job. You're not going to like it.
Yeah, that leads me into my next question of a lot of this can become tricky and problematic, especially if you've got end users and business unit managers that are pushing back on this. I think we've had some cases here where IT or some other departments told us that they wanted us to use this particular storage service, and we were using a different one, and we were really happy with it, and there was this push and pull back and forth. How do you do this so that IT doesn't become the villain in the piece? And how do you do this in a responsible way so that you can, respect each other?
But yeah, see, I think one of the roles, if you look at that's emerging, and which we have at Freshworks and in all the couple of jobs that I've been in before I came to Freshworks, is this role of what I call the IT product manager.
Okay.
Right? Think about it. Product managers are typically there in product organizations. Their role is to now work with the industry and work with the market to find out what do I need to put in my product in terms of features, so that now I can make a good product out of what I'm building, and then find a market for that, right? So product managers are out there scoping and finding out what the real need is from a product that you're building. The IT product manager is something very similar. So I have an IT product manager who's aligned to my finance team, an IT product manager with my sales team, with my marketing team, with my customer support team, right? With my HR team, right? They actually are more, visualize them as more the business process person sitting within IT who's actually now embedded within the business, right? So what that does for me is the IT product manager knows exactly how finance does its job, how they go about doing their month-end close, how they do the AP transactions, how they do the AR transactions. And now they actually collaborate with our controllers organization to say, hey, you're actually working on this. Let me take a look at how you're doing the invoice scanning.
Yeah.
That results in a project which will say, hey, you're actually spending a lot of time here. Let's collaborate and come up with a way by which we can come up with a scanning application, for example, right? Or they work with the sales team to say, oh, okay, you actually are working with 5 different panes of glass. That's very inefficient from a sales perspective. So the IT product manager is actually looking at it as somebody sitting in IT who's got complete knowledge of the business process on the business side. Because remember, IT is not an IT leader, or the people within IT are not technology experts. They are more business experts nowadays.
Right. And we've heard, this is not anything that's earth shattering or new. We've been talking about this at Computer World and some other sites for a long time about aligning, that's part of the alignment between IT and the business. But it feels that it would be really difficult to try to find subject matter experts in your IT group to then. You're telling your IT guy who's spent their whole life, working in technology and either networking or programming or coding or whatever, and then you're telling them, well, now you got to learn about all this accounting software, or you're now in charge of the sales staff and you got to learn about all these sales things. Is it hard to do to create these IT product managers?
It is, and it is a commitment that you need to make as an organization. And see, one of the techniques that we use here is what we call cross-pollination. We actually have people from the business and from our product organization moving into IT,
Right.
and working within my organization. People from within my team actually go and working on the business teams, and actually going and working on the product teams. So we do product kind of cross-pollination of people from the business to IT and IT to the business. So which enables a good job rotation. Because you think about it from an employee's perspective. They want to learn stuff. They want to make a difference in the workplace that they're working in, right? And if we provide them the job rotation opportunity where they're able to work in finance for some time and then work within IT. In fact, my IT product managers, they don't sit within IT. They actually sit in. They'll attend the HR staff meeting. They'll attend the controller staff meeting. They actually are almost sitting alongside the users there.
Yeah.
And we do cross-pollination. We say, hey, if you're in finance and you want to be do a short stint in IT, come out IT, right? Where you do not need to know all the bells and whistles of how single sign-on works and all that. But you are a business leader who understands the business process.
Right.
Let's cross-pollinate. So we and this is something where it has to come culturally within the company. The company needs to be able to support that, right? Where you enable the free movement of people from one organization to the other.
Is it hard to start setting this up, or is this something that can be done if a company doesn't have these types of people?
It is actually not very difficult.
Okay.
Think about it, right? Thanks to the world of SaaS, where the business process is already codified within a SaaS application, right? It's already codified, right? Where the business user is already working with a piece of SaaS software. And what IT is doing is turning the knobs and turning on the features and enabling the integration between the various SaaS applications and turning on the workflow within those applications. So it is almost when IT is configuring things, they're actually operating like a business person. And the business person, when they're working on the tool, they're almost doing something similar to what IT would think about, except that they're not going into the admin mode to go and tune the knobs, right? So once you get them to say, hey, you can actually play a role sitting within IT, turning the knob, the light bulb goes off on that side. And as long as the organization creates a no risk paradigm for them, where they say we encourage job rotation and we encourage people to get out of their comfort zone and be vulnerable,
okay,
and allow them to thrive in the new role that they're in. You have created an environment where IT and business, the interlock between both of them is that much deeper.
Okay. And I'm going to jump around again. I'm sorry about this, but there's another stat from the report that I wanted to ask you about. And it's basically said that people are fearful of criticizing a software decision or a deployment. 73%, for example, are hesitant to voice feedback for fear of losing their job or being seen as incompetent. So how can IT work better with users and business leaders to allow them to speak up if the software that they've either installed themselves or software that was told to be installed, if it just stinks? Like, how do you get them to speak up more without any kind of fear of reprisal?
Oh my God.
I'll come out and say it. I don't like Microsoft Teams, for example, but we're being forced to use it sometimes here.
Yeah. Hey, Keith, you've been in the industry long enough, right? Have you ever heard of any CIO saying that they had a failed Tivoli implementation?
I'm sorry. Say that. No, say that again. Have I ever heard?
Have you ever heard of a CIO saying that they had a failed IBM Tivoli?
Oh, right. Nobody ever got fired for picking IBM, right? That was the old joke.
So, yeah, so that used to be an inside joke in IT for many years.
Yeah.
Right? See, I think the problem you're talking about in terms of a fear of criticizing software decisions, right, is there in the industry, right? And so a few things we can do to avoid this, right? IT needs to be seen as a trusted advisor to the business, right? Where if you make it where if the business is criticizing something, and if you make it where you make it a hostile environment where they feel like they're going to be criticized for criticizing, then you've created a hostile environment, right? Mm-hmm. So a few techniques here. One is have a formal voice of the customer program, right? This is going to make sure that you, on a very frequent basis, have the IT product managers run QBRs with the business stakeholders in terms of saying, hey, here's what we have done for you lately. What is it that has worked and what is it that has not worked? And we have an open adult conversation about it. you're going to have emotions. And whenever you bring a bunch of people together, you are definitely going to have emotions and opinions come into the picture. But then if you can weed out the noise and then look at what the objective feedback that you're getting, then you can start making a change. So the voice of the customer through QBRs is one way, right? And you need to acknowledge that sometimes the feedback will not be positive, right? And in some respects, this is where when IT is actually embedded within the business, you should not be surprised that the user is having a problem, right?
Yeah.
If it's in a mode where you have to wait for formal feedback from the users to know that there is a problem, you've already lost the battle. It should actually be you already being embedded in the business, knowing what your software adoption is.
Okay.
So don't just deploy a project and say, I'm done with the project. You don't never want to be a operation successful and the patient is dead, right?
Yeah.
You want to make sure, did I deploy a project? Is it being adopted? Are they the features, the bells and whistles which I've turned on as part of my project? Are the users really using it? Do they really like what they are using?
Right.
And sometimes we make mistakes. We are human.
Yeah.
It is okay to acknowledge that we have made mistakes. Right?
Okay. I want to jump into the AI section of our episode. It feels like every episode I do has a discussion of generative AI. What did you guys discover from, I obviously you asked this question of your respondents about how AI can help. Is it just about automating a lot of the software that companies already have at their companies and just automating those tasks to improve efficiency? Because we've heard that, but could it also be used to start managing a lot of this software sprawl? Like, what did you hear from your survey of respondents?
Yeah, see, I think AI is not anything new, right? And if you take, it's been there in the industry for 30, 40 years. In fact, during my programming classes 35 years ago, I've programmed in Lisp, which is one of the AI languages, right? So AI has been around for many, many years.
Yeah, obviously we're talking about generative AI then. Yeah, the newer stuff.
We're talking about, So thanks to the announcement from Microsoft earlier this year, right? Generative AI is now on the top of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So if you really look at where AI is applicable, right? In many organizations, you will have people using, for example, a grammar checking application to check the grammar of an email that they're sending out, or a note that they're writing. If AI is embedded into that piece of software, this is one more thing where you do not have to buy that extra piece of software, right? So part of your question was, can we use AI and the generative AI features to make sure that you're not that you're reducing your software sprawl? Mm-hmm. The answer is yes, right? Instead of getting a separate application to summarize the interactions that you've had with your customer, right? You could actually have I'm taking a customer support example here, where an agent is talking to a customer, and the agent needs to hand off the ticket to somebody else downstream for a level 2 or a level 3 escalation. Now, what do? They would take the ticket and then write a summary to send it up the chain here, right? Instead of doing that, if AI can be used to summarize the complete chatter that has happened between the customer and the agent, and then summarizes for the next person, right? Another area is AI can enable you to not have a separate analytics tool to know what's going on. You could get AI built into the tool to enable you to see what the insights are. How many tickets am I receiving? Am I receiving too many tickets in this particular space? Am I seeing a sudden spike in a particular ticket category?
Right.
Especially for retail customers around quarter end. If they see a sudden spike in website failures, maybe their e-commerce engine is not able to handle that.
Right.
So you can actually use AI to reduce software sprawl, provided it is built into your business process.
Okay.
Don't look at it as a magical solution and then look for the problem.
All right. So while I've got you here on the show, I want to ask a question. As since you're a CIO, do you get a lot of business unit leaders assuming that generative AI is just kind of like a bag of magic beans, and that this is a just wave a magic wand and all of our problems will be solved? Or do you get a sense that they understand what it can and cannot do? Like maybe initially, did they all think it was magic?
Oh yeah. So as with any hype cycle that comes out, right? As with any hyped technology that people hear about, we saw the same thing with big data. Everybody started talking big data for everything.
Sure.
And they were dealing with all data, right? We saw that with mobile, where everybody's like, oh yeah, I need to have a mobile. I need to have a mobile for this and so on, right? Same thing is happening with generative AI, where you do have a pocket of people thinking that it is the magical solution to all your problems, right? There is also the other side of the coin, Keith, where people are like, hey, is AI going to take away my jobs? When I'm speaking in many kind of events like this, right?
Yeah.
One of the questions that get asked is AI going to replace my job, right? So there is also that fear, and on the part of the business saying, if I now have an AI engine doing what I used to do, is my job at risk, right? So you do have both of those symptoms.
Yeah, you never saw anybody going, is big data going to take my job? Because so it does feel like AI is a little bit different there, because you never had any of that fear for, big data or crypto coins or some of these other big hype technologies. It does feel different. But do you have to level their expectations on people that assume that AI will solve everything?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is where it comes back to having a fact-based conversation, right? AI is a means to an end, right? Within IT, we have a whole bunch of tools within our armor to now deploy based on what the business need is, right? So, and AI is yet another tool, right? So the meaningful deployment of AI to solve business problems, I think is the magical happy medium here.
All right. Was there any parts of the survey that surprised you, or were the answers expected, kind of falling in line with what you thought they were going to say? Was there anything that jumped out at you as going, wow, that's great?
Yeah. So I think there was one statistic about youth embracing AI, and that kind of gives me a lot of confidence that the future of AI is really bright. Right?
Okay,
think about it. It's the next generation that has to now look for, how do I take a piece of technology? How do I take a tool or a means to an end, and then now make life better, right? And that was I was pleasantly surprised and happy. That is that.
Always good to end on an optimistic note there with surveys like that. So that's all. Again, thank you for joining us on the show today, Prasad. I think this was some really cool stuff and great advice there for business leaders.
All right, thank you so much, Keith. Wonderful talking to you.
That's all the time we have for today's episode. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and add any comments that you have below. Join us every week for new episodes of Today in Tech. I'm Keith Shaw. Thanks for watching.